Hi, welcome back. Welcome back. It's so nice to be with you again today. So happy to have our therapist, our resident therapist, Sheri Ryland, with us. Bringing this segment to the Soul Talks podcast was really important to me. Mental health is such an important part of my life. I grew up with a mom who needed a lot of mental health help and didn't get it. And there have been so many times in my life where I've sought help, therapy, and it's helped me not only navigate through difficult times, but I think in an ongoing way, it's that therapy helps me so much be the woman I want to see looking back at me in the mirror and to be my best self, to be my most authentic self. And I'm always striving for that. So I'm just so thankful for what Sheri brings to us on the Soul Talks podcast. Today, we're going to get into a little tricky area because of what's going on in our world today. There's so much divisiveness, so much polarization, and Sheri's going to talk to us about how to handle that so it doesn't rip our families and our friendships apart. Thank you.
Thank you
For being here today. It's just, it's a tough time, and there's so many feelings everywhere, just everywhere we go.
Absolutely.
This is what people are talking about, and this is what people are hurting about or exalted about.
Right. There's very rarely anything in between, right?
Yeah.
And so when we are in a situation of divisiveness, that's where we see the biggest problems, right? When we can be in the middle and feel like, okay, I feel okay with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, then we can survive and feel like, okay, I'll get at least a little bit of what I want and you'll get a little bit of what you want and we'll be okay. But we're in a time when it's all or nothing for people. So an example is, I'm coming here, I came here today and in an Uber, and my Uber driver, that was one of he asked me what I was here for. And I said I was coming to tape a podcast. And so the first thing he asked me was what was it about? And I said, well, I'm going to be talking about mental health. And immediately, so everybody always says, I really need that.
Yeah, I love that though.
And saying about how hard this last couple of days have been. And what I've seen is this is not just a last couple of days thing, right? This has been going on for a long time. I think even generationally, this has been going on for a long time. It's not just our current culture. Politics is a difficult thing for people to, from the beginning of time, right? That's why we have separate parties. That's why we have a division in the first place. But I think what's happened lately is more of this continued need to divide so drastically that it's harder for people to come together in the middle. So it's either, if you don't believe my way, then you're completely crazy, or you just don't get me. And if you don't get me and you vote this way, then we can't be friends on either side. So that's the hardest part, is wrapping our brains around what do we know now to be true versus what do we know that the media told us. Because so much of this over time has become about what the media says. Whether it's fake news, real news, doesn't really matter. It's the idea that there's so much of it.
Yeah.
And you can't escape it. So
when there's so many heightened feelings, you know,
Yes.
it's kind of like we were talking about in another segment at the holidays, you go home to your family and you're feeling all these things that made you mad at 5 or 8 or 20, and
Yeah.
you go into that Christmas meal and you're already mad because you don't want to deal with your dad or whatever.
Right.
This is kind of the same way. There's just so much buildup for so
Right.
long.
Well, I mean, it really is at this point tearing families apart, right? I have people that come into my office and have been for a few years now, coming in specifically because of that break in their family connection. Because how could you believe this? This is hurting me as a woman, or this is hurting me as a gay or lesbian person. This is hurting me as whatever it is I believe, right? And when we have that where it's so personal, it's not just who's in office making some decisions that don't really affect anybody in our minds, where we might have been a few years ago. I mean, I don't know, different generations, right?
Yeah.
We felt different things about what our government will do for us or not. Now it's become so personal. It's beyond personal, to the point where if I know you don't vote, then we can't be friends. If I know you voted for that person, we can't be friends. So that's the piece. It's not just about the person. It's about everything else that we've come to believe to be true about that party or this party, or what it means to be a dirty liberal or a dirty Republican, right? Whatever it is that we've inflamed.
So are there tools? Is there a way for it not to be so polarizing, especially with our closest, connections, our families,
Right.
our children, our best friends?
Right. Well, and
What's your advice?
my advice is that we have to go back to, I know we've talked about this many times, but the connection between you and that person, right? Is
There you go.
that if we are able to remember that we're friends for all these other reasons, or we're family, and it's not just to agree to disagree, because that really doesn't solve anything for anybody. It's just saying that, you know what, we can listen to each other. We can say that, you know what, this is why I feel this way, and to validate each other, because both sides can be true. And when we think that we know better than the other, that's when we're always going to have a problem. So the more that we're able to say, I'm going to separate the fact that you politically believe this and I love you as my mom, or I love you as this. But when that continues to be the fight at the table, that's when you have to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to walk away, right? I'm going to separate the fact that what you just said violates me to the core, because that's what we're believing, right? We're believing that you're violating me by your beliefs.
Or your choice.
And your choice. Or your no choice, right? Because that's another thing. If you don't participate in the election at all, then you're also looked at in another way. So it's the idea of coming down and saying, okay, first of all, I'm going to take down that fear, because fear is what's driving it all, right? If you believe that somebody voted for something that's going to take something away from you, that may or may not happen, right? There's so many other variables, but that's all I think about. Mm-hmm. Then that's what's going to destroy you. So it goes back to, why did that push my button? Why did that upset me so much? What is my fear? And then really being able to talk that out, or being able to say, okay, right now, I only know this in this moment to be true. Right now, I'm safe right now. And reminding myself that I can't make decisions about something that may or may not happen 5 years from now, or 3 years, or next week. I have to be mindful of the moment. That's where my sanity is going to lie. That's where I can make clear decisions versus, how dare you? You come from a very defensive stance when you're in that position. And when you feel out of control, that's how you're going to answer. So that's why people are battling, because they are scared.
Yeah.
On either side.
And fear manifests as so many things.
Right.
But I want to go back to just one point as we try to wrap this little piece up, which is such a big weighted piece, but not very many minutes that we've been able to give it. I really love what you said about it. It does all come back to connections and saying, okay, do I want to be right? Or can I hold my views over here more quietly and still say, I want that relationship with my mom, or I want that relationship with my sister. I want that friendship I've had forever, but she's voting over here and I voted over here, and it makes me really mad, but can I hold it in a different place and still honor the connection?
Right.
Yeah, I think
it all comes down to connection. And if you feel strongly enough that you cannot continue that connection, that's okay too, right? But it's how you end that connection. It's how you say, I'm going to quietly walk away, or I'm going to say, you know what? I don't feel that we both are on the same enough page to feel comfortable with each other. That is absolutely your choice.
Yeah.
And I think that people forget that, that you have a choice to walk away or not. It's how you do it. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not going to spend as much time with that person because I feel like our values are too separate. But when I make a big fight over it and I say, you're an evil person and how dare you, then I've gone to a whole nother level of criticism and contempt, and like where we were talking about that before, then that's where we're never going to solve anything together. That's why the whole idea of why things like this become this problem is that need to divide people, that need to be I'm 100% right, you're 100% wrong. And then we're forgetting about what's happening in the middle. There's so many other things that are important that we're not even talking about or working on. So figuring out, where can we help each other change the
Yeah.
things that are important? Where can we put our efforts
Yeah.
versus feeling in fear and hiding?
Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Thanks.
So much needed in these days.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today. Just really, really valuable insights from Sheri in this time in our world that is, it's a tough one to walk some days. So listen closely, repeat it, and hopefully it will help you find an easier path right now. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you
Thank you.
so much for being with us. So
Glad to be
appreciative.
here. Thank you.